I am really delighted, Conference, to have my own chance to welcome you all to Brighton and Hove. And I think I'm pretty safe in saying that it's the first time where we have the chance to be hosted by the local Member of Parliament and by the leader of the City Council. And I can't tell you what pride and pleasure that gives me. And I'm sure some of you are already looking forward to doing the same in your own towns and cities, and that it won't be too many more years before we meet in London or Norwich or Oxford or Lancaster or Bristol. And as well as hearing from councillors about what they've achieved, we'll also hear from the local MP about what they're doing fighting for the green cause in Parliament. And perhaps today is also the first time that Conference has been addressed by a suspected criminal. For I'm here, of course, on police bail. There may even be a delegation from the police. There may even be a delegation from the police here in the hall today to make sure we all behave. And if they are, actually I think we should be quite pleased, because if the police believe that Greens pose a threat to the established order of things, where big business can ignore local democracy and trash our natural environment at will, then we must be doing something right. And if the police are here, they are welcome to take this message down in their notebooks. We will continue to use every peaceful avenue we have to ensure that fracking is no longer able to pose a profound threat to our climate. And we will continue to work alongside the hundreds of communities across the country in their struggle against fracking too. It is always such a pleasure to have the chance to address Conference. There is no more thoughtful or challenging or supportive audience anywhere in politics. And we're democratic. Our members are in charge. You make the policies. You set the priorities. And you are the guardians of our values. And it's this, above all else, that sets us apart from the other political parties. When I'm asked about the Green Party by other politicians, and as our membership and our influence increases, there's more and more interest in who we are and what we do, then this is often the point they can't get. Surely, they say, you can override what the members want. Surely you can prevent discussions on topics you don't like. Surely you can put the frighteners on people or use a block vote to push them out of the way. Well, no, we're not like that. We alone trust our members, ourselves. And that's the principle we take out to the people as well. We don't spin you a line. We don't pretend you can party on forever and the earth will keep providing. We don't claim that the poor are better off if you take their benefits away. We tell the truth. And perhaps that's why, when political engagement is on the wane, we are growing. There are now more Girl Guides than there are members of all the political parties put together. Greenpeace is larger than the Conservative Party. The Women's Institute has more members than the Labour Party. Yet the Greens are continuing to grow in membership each and every year. Yes. And in talking about our success, I can't help but mention our leader, Natalie Bennett. I've seen her grow into her role and make it her own. A style that is winning praise, but substance too in her campaigning work and in her enormous energy in driving forward the party both locally and nationally. Now, as leader, it fell to Natalie earlier today to salute the achievements of party members up and down the country. Community campaigning, election victories, breakthroughs where we've never won before, and putting our policies into action on behalf of the people we're here to serve. That's one duty as leader that I miss. But there is one achievement that I can't stop myself from mentioning. A bigger challenge than being elected as MP, or even becoming a peer of the realm. A bigger responsibility, and it's right here in Brighton and Hove. Because there can be few more difficult jobs in this country at this time than running a council. And it's been a tough year for the council and the local party here in Brighton and Hove. They've taken some hard knocks and learnt some painful lessons. But think what they've had to deal with. You know, we've had some pretty choice ministers in charge of local government down the years. Nicholas Ridley, John Prescott, Michael Howard, but nothing and no one compares to Eric Pickles. And what's his plan? Dump everything on local authorities, give them none of the tools or the resources they need to care for local people, and then call it localism. He'll tell your council they should ban speed bumps. He'll override local democracy and impose new developments, roads, even nuclear waste dumps, you name it, all in the name of localism. So imagine his fury that there's one local authority that won't toe the line. They know that their job is to serve the people of Brighton and Hove. No one in this city voted for Eric Pickles, and they certainly didn't vote for swinging cuts or for a cap on local taxes coming from government. Eric Pickles, remember, is the man who said it was reasonable for MPs to claim for 2 houses because sometimes they have to work late. Now you tell that to the firefighters, the social workers, the teachers, and all the other council staff in Brighton and Hove and around the country who work late serving their local communities. 2 homes, they're lucky if they can meet the rent or the mortgage payments on one home, because Pickles and his friends are imposing real-term wage cuts and slashing benefits. Eric Pickles tells councils that they need to balance their books. He lectures them about good housekeeping. Yet his own department, Communities and Local Government, ended last year overdrawn to the sum of £217 million on an unauthorised overdraft, and he was fined as a result. The truth is, no one shows more hostility to local government and local democracy than Eric Pickles. And when you think of his colleagues in power and that they include George Osborne, then frankly, that's some achievement. But that isn't the only cause of the crisis in local government. We have a political elite who have decided the axe must fall hardest on those in the greatest need, on those with the least political clout. And that means local councils and the people they serve. You know, money can be found to replace Trident, but not to keep libraries open. It can be found to whisk wealthy people from London to Birmingham, but not for the rural buses that people who don't drive depend on. It can be found to build new prisons, but not treat the underlying causes of crime, like addiction and unemployment. Local government is responsible for the basic services that every civilised community needs. Meals on wheels, public toilets, care homes. They're not the fashionable ones, perhaps. Not the ones that make good photo opportunities. Not the ones that their friends in big business see as the profit centres of the future. I'm sure if you spend your time in the company of people from News Corporation or British Aerospace and Vodafone, then mending potholes or maintaining streetlights or caring for the elderly must seem a bit beneath your notice. But that's why we're here, isn't it? Because people are getting a raw deal from politics, and we want to do something about it. For people here and now, the vulnerable, hit by government cuts from one side and ripped off by unscrupulous businesses on the other. And for those around the world who have no one to speak for them. The prisoners held without trial in Guantanamo Bay. And we think again of Shaka Arma, held without charge or trial for over 11 years. For the communities in Africa blighted by hazardous waste, the communities in Asia and Latin America pushed away to make way for mines and ranches to feed the West's extravagant lifestyles. For everyone who cares about the natural world, for everyone alarmed that 60% of species have been declining over the last 50 years and wants it to be protected for them and their kids. For those to come, whose future is being wasted by government and businesses, who, like some kind of 18th century rakes, seem intent on squandering our human inheritance, encouraging the rest of us to consume with no thought for the morrow. And for those in those other countries too, those who are already feeling the impact of our rapidly warming world through flooding and drought and sea level rise. Securing a safe climate means leaving at least 2/3 of known fossil fuel reserves in the ground, unburnable carbon. A rapid shift to renewables and redoubling of energy efficiency is also about tackling fuel poverty, creating good jobs for our young people, and prosperity and security for all of our citizens. If you're Labour, saying that we're on your side is nothing more than another slick marketing slogan. For us, it's the reason we're in politics. much of the time we're putting the alternative that Labour no longer wants to provide. The alternative to austerity, the alternative to zero-hour contracts, the alternative to Trident, the alternative to a rail system that allows private shareholders to profit while passengers pay some of the highest fares in Europe. And we won't always get it right, but we'll always try and do the right thing, not swayed by big business or block votes or the Daily Mail. That's what sets us apart. And conference, that's why we're needed more than ever, and all of us have the chance to contribute to this cause. For me, it's been through the enormous privilege of being able to represent in Parliament the people of Brighton Pavilion, and all those who support our values or need our voice and our support. Sometimes it's working behind the scenes, publishing a tax and financial transparency bill to crack down on the 500,000 companies that evade taxes each year, protecting small businesses from unfair energy contracts and from high business rates, being an advocate for the mother fleeing domestic violence, not seen as the main parent because she's too afraid to insist she gets child benefit, and therefore now being hit by a crippling reduction in housing benefit thanks to the cruel bedroom tax. A woman who is desperately seeking work but can't afford the price of a new pair of tights to wear to interviews. Sometimes my role is more visible, speaking out against the media's sexism and being challenged in Parliament for the deeply inappropriate act of wearing a No More Page 3 t-shirt. Calling out the government for its mean and miserable act of removing the link between benefit levels and inflation. Getting companies who promote illegal weapons of torture ejected from the DSEI arms fair. Sometimes my work is cross-party, like backing community pubs or opposing the badger cull. And often it's about raising issues that few other MPs want to support, and where Labour and the coalition have similarly dirty track records. Like speaking the truth to power on the scandal of undercover police targeting legitimate police groups, protest groups, not police groups. Legitimate police targeting legitimate protest groups. On secret courts and the erosion of our personal liberties, and telling the truth about the scale of the challenge of climate change. Not saying what we think is politically palatable, but saying it as it is. And I couldn't do any of it without the support of my amazing staff, to whom I pay tribute again here and now. And I know that when I'm joined in the Houses of Parliament by Jenny Jones, the collective green voice that is every one of you, every member of our party, will be heard even louder as well. And increasingly, we're filling the gap left by the Liberal Democrats too. Who would have thought just a few years ago that the Liberals would be part of a government that was introducing secret courts, where you're tried using evidence you can't even see, let alone challenge? Liberals supporting a government that pays for lorries to drive around with "Foreigners Go Home" painted on the side. Liberals backing the bombing of Syria without waiting for the UN to try and coordinate an international response. Conference, this is the vampire kiss of this coalition. You offer yourself to Count David, and before long you're one of them, and you've sold your soul, and you've grown fangs of your own. The way the three main parties have become so similar in their policies and values over the years means that the outcome of the next election is hard to predict. But whatever happens, it is a key moment for the Green Party. 2010 was a historic achievement, the culmination of the work of thousands of people over decades. And we have to repeat that achievement again in just 2 years' time. And it won't be any easier. We have a Labour Party desperately targeting Brighton Pavilion. They don't like the idea of the Greens joining them on the national stage. It gives people too much of a choice. It shows that you can stick to your principles and still get elected, and they don't like that. So we have to be honest. We have to be honest, Conference. Those steady years of progress that we've made could be at risk. Single seats on councils, and then the council groups, and then the European Parliament, and the London Assembly, and now the House of Commons. But if we don't redouble our efforts, we could find ourselves going backwards. We aren't after power for ourselves, but it matters for those we represent, and it matters now more than ever. We have a government that is intent on demonising the poor and vulnerable, that is tearing up the idea of society and of our interdependence, that is taking us towards environmental catastrophe. Conference, this is worse than the Victorian era, because it's not just about substituting personal charity for the welfare state. The government's saying that the poor don't deserve help from the state or from individuals. Instead, people are encouraged to despise those who have less. And so you have the grotesque spectacle of boys from Eton lecturing others about how to get on in life. But where is the alternative? Labour are still dancing to Thatcher's tune. Private sector good, public sector bad, enterprise is better than solidarity. But in many ways, when in power, they went further than even Thatcher ever dreamt. She didn't actually kill our National Health Service, but it's Labour's market reforms that have paved the way for the Tories' breakup of the NHS. The state now spies on its citizens in ways undreamed of under Thatcher. But where are Labour to protest about the trampling on our basic liberties? And most shaming of all, we see Labour MPs, heirs to the party of Nye Bevan and Clement Attlee, failing to properly challenge the Tories' all-out attack on the welfare system. So it's time that we, as Greens, restated some basic principles about our country. First, that yes, we are all in it together. We can't have a society based on the haves casting off the have-nots, who are then marginalised, demonised, even criminalised. Successive governments have gone after the enemy within: miners, the unemployed, trade unions, asylum seekers, scroungers. But to exclude others is to lessen and to tarnish ourselves. No one is outside the pale. They are us, our friends, our work colleagues, our nation. And second, we are one nation. We can't have a metropolitan and home counties elite writing a set of rules for themselves and their neighbours and another set of rules for the rest of the country. We see communities being asked to do the dirty work for the rich, to take the nuclear waste, to put up with fracking. Now that's wrong, and it's unfair, and it is, dare I say it, unpatriotic. For this is fracking at the national level, breaking up the land, taking the profits and leaving local communities to pick up the pieces. It's the politics of selfishness. It seeks to free those with wealth from the responsibilities that go with the privileges. And in the end, it's the millionaires and the billionaires who gain the most. And that's why we stick to our belief that fair is worth fighting for. It's not just a slogan. For us, fairness is not a buzzword from a focus group. We know what it means, and we believe it. And it's a fight we can win. Electorally, in Brighton and Hove and across our country, and morally, our values are shared by so many people who may not even be members or supporters. And now we must do more to show all those who see that our country is heading in the wrong direction that they're not alone. It's like a march or a demonstration. We hold our banner high, but we're proud to march alongside others under other banners who share the same cause. We each have our role, and ours is to give our cause a voice in politics. No one else can do this but the Greens. And we have 2 years until the next election. 2 years to show this to all those who share our values in communities up and down the land. And above all, to show them that we can be re-elected here in this city. That their voice, our voice, cannot be stifled and silenced by the old politics. Conference, we have 2 years to produce another piece of history. And that work starts here today. Thank you.